Atop the tallest of earth's peaks dwell the gods of earth, and suffer no man that tell that he hath looked upon them. Lesser peaks they once inhabited, but ever the men from the plains would scale the slopes of rock and snow, driving the gods to higher and higher mountains, till now only the last remains. When they left their older peaks, they took with them all signs of themselves, save once, it is said, when they left a carven image on the face of the mountain which they called Greenock. But now they have betaken themselves to unknown Cadath, in the cold waste where no man treads, and are grown stern, having no higher peak where to flee at the coming of men. They are grown stern, and where once they suffered men to displace them, they now forbid men to come, or coming, to depart. It is well for men that they know not of Cadath in the cold waste, as they would seek injudiciously to scale it. Sometimes, when earth's gods are homesick, they visit in the still night the peaks where they once dwelt, and weep softly as they try to play in the olden way on remembered slopes. Men have felt the tears of the gods on white-capped Thuria, though they have thought it rain, and have heard the sighs of the gods in the plaintive downwinds of Larian. In cloud ships, the gods are wont to travel, and wise carters have legends that keep them from certain high peaks at night when it is cloudy, for the gods are not lenient as of old. In Ulthar, which lies beyond the river Sky, once dwelt an old man, avid to behold the gods of earth. A man deeply learned in the 7 cryptical books of Hassan, and familiar with the narcotic manuscripts of distant and frozen Lamar. His name was Barzai the Wise, and the villagers tell of how he went up a mountain on the night of a strange eclipse. Barzai knew so much of the gods that he could tell of their comings and goings, and guessed so many of their secrets that he was deemed himself half a god. It was he who wisely advised the burgesses of Ulthar when they passed the remarkable law against the slaying of cats, and who first told the young priest Atal where it is that black cats go at midnight on St. John's Eve. Barzai was learned in the lore of Earth's gods, and had gained a desire to look upon their faces. He believed that his great secret knowledge of gods could shield him from their wrath, so resolved to go up to the summit of high and rocky Hathor Claw in the night when he knew the gods would be there. Hathig Claw is far in the stony desert beyond Hathig, for which it is named, and rises like a rock statue in the silent temple. Around its peak the mists play away mournfully, for mists are the memories of the gods, and the gods loved Hathig Claw when they dwelt upon it in the old days. Often, the gods of the earth visit Hathig Claw in the ships of cloud, casting pale vapors over the slopes as they dance reminiscently on the summit under a clear moon. The villagers of Hathig say it is ill to climb Hathig Claw at any time, and deadly to climb it by night when pale vapors hide the summit and the moon. But Barzai heeded them not when he came from neighboring Ulthar with the young priest Atal, who was his disciple. Atal was only the son of an innkeeper and was sometimes afraid. But Barzai's father had been a landgrave who dwelt in the ancient castle, so he had no common superstition in his blood and only laughed at the fearful Cotters. Barzai and Atal went out of Hathig into the stony desert despite the prayers of peasants, and talked of Earth's gods by the campfire at night. Many days they traveled, and from afar saw lofty Hathig Kla, with his aureole of mournful mist. On the 13th day they reached the mountain's lonely base, and Atal spoke of his fears. But Barzai was old and learned, and had no fears, so led the way boldly up the slope that no man had scaled since the time of Sansu, who has written of the fright in the moldy narcotic manuscripts. The way was rocky, and made perilous by chasms, cliffs, and falling stones. Later it grew cold and snowy, and Barzai and Atal often slipped and fell as they hewed and plodded upward with staves and axes. Finally, the air grew thin, and the sky changed color, and the climbers found it hard to breathe. But still they toiled, up and up, marveling at the strangeness of the scene, and thrilling at the thought of what would have happened at the summit when the moon was out and the pale vapors spread around. For 3 days they climbed higher, higher and higher, toward the roof of the world. Then they camped to wait for the clouding of the moon. For 4 nights, no clouds came, and the moon shone down cold through the thin, mournful mists around the silent pinnacle. Then, on the 5th night, which was the night of the full moon, Barzai saw some dense clouds far to the north, and stayed up with Atal to watch them draw near. Thick and majestic, they sailed slowly and deliberately onward, ranging themselves round the peak high above the watchers, and hiding the moon and the summit from view. For a long hour the watchers gazed, whilst the vapors swirled and the screen of clouds grew thicker and more restless. Barzai was wise in the lore of Earth's gods, and listened hard for certain sounds. But Atal felt the chill of the vapors, and the awe of the night, and feared much. And when Barzai began to climb higher, and beckon eagerly, it was long before Atal would follow. So thick were the vapors that the way was hard, and though Atal followed on at last, he could scarce see the grey shape of Barzai on the dim slope above the clouded moonlight. Barzai forged very far ahead, and seemed despite his age to climb more easily than Atal, fearing not the steepness that began to grow too great for any save a strong and dauntless man, nor pausing at wide black chasms that Atal scarce could leap. And so they went up wildly over rocks and gulfs, slipping and stumbling, and sometimes awed at the vastness and horrible silence of bleak ice pinnacles and mute granite steeps. Very suddenly, Barzai went out of Atal's sight, scaling a hideous cliff that seemed to bulge outward and block the path for any climber not inspired of Earth's gods. Atoll was far below, and planning what he should do when he reached the place. When curiously, he noticed that the light had grown strong, as if the cloudless peak and moonlit meeting place of the gods were very near. And as he scrambled on toward the bulging cliff and litten sky, he felt fears more shocking than any he had known before. Then through the high mists he heard the voice of unseen Spaghet shouting wildly in delight. "I have heard the gods. I have heard Earth's gods singing in revelry in Hathor. The voices of Earth's gods are known to Spaghet the prophet. The mists are thin, and the moon is bright, and I shall see the gods dancing wildly in Hathor that they loved in youth. The wisdom of Spaghet hath made him greater than Earth's gods, and against his will their spell and barriers are as naught. Spaghet will behold the gods, the proud gods, the secret gods, the gods of Earth who spun the sight of men." Atoll could not hear the voices Spaghet heard, but he was now close to the bulging cliff and scanning it for footholds. Then he heard Spaghet's voice grow shriller and louder. "The mists are very thin, and the moon casts shadows on the slope. The voices of Earth's gods are high and wild, and they fear the coming of Spaghet the Wise. Who is greater than they? The moon's light flickers as Earth's gods dance against it. I shall see the dancing forms of the gods that leap and howl in the moonlight. The light is dimmer, and the gods are afraid." While Spaghet was shouting these things, Atoll felt a spectral change in the air, as if the laws of Earth were bowing to great laws. For though the way was steeper than ever, the upward path was now grown fearsomely easy, and the bulging cliff proved scarce an obstacle when he reached it and slid perilously up its convex face. The light of the moon had strangely failed, and as Atoll plunged upward through the mists, he heard Spaghet the Wise shrieking in the shadows. "The moon is dark, and the gods dance in the night. There is terror in the sky, for upon the moon hath sunk an eclipse foretold in no books of men or Earth's gods. There is unknown magic on Hathor, for the screams of the frightened gods have turned to laughter, and the slopes of ice shoot up endlessly into the black heavens whither I am plunging. High, high, at last! In the dim light I behold the gods of Earth." And now Atoll, slipping dizzily over the inconceivable steeps, heard in the dark and lonesome laughing, mixed with such a cry as no man else ever heard, save in the Phlegethon of unrelatable nightmares. A cry wherein reverberated the horror and anguish of haunted lifetime packed into one atrocious moment. The other gods! The other gods! The gods of the outer hells that guard the feeble gods of Earth! Look away! Go back! Do not see! Do not see! The vengeance of the infinite abysses! That curse that damnable pit! Merciful gods of Earth! I am falling into the sky! And as Atoll shut his eyes and stopped his ears, and tried to jump downward against the frightful pull from unknown heights. There resounded on Hathig Claw that terrible peal of thunder which awakened the good carters of the plains, and the honest burgesses of Hathig, and Near and Ulthar, and caused them to behold through the clouds that strange eclipse of the moon that no book ever predicted. And when the moon came out at last, Atal was safe on the lower snows of the mountain, without sight of Earth's gods, or of the other gods. Now it is told in the mouldy Narcotic manuscripts that Sun Tzu found naught but wordless ice and rock when he climbed Hathig Claw in the youth of the world. Yet when the men of Ulthar, Near, and Hathig crushed their fears and scaled that haunted steep by day in search of Bathzai the Wise, they found graven in the naked stone of the summit a curious and cyclopean symbol 50 cubits wide, as if the rock had been riven by some titanic chisel. And the symbol was like to one that learned men had discerned in those frightful parts of the Narcotic manuscripts which are too ancient to be read. This they found. Bathzai the Wise they never found, nor could the holy priest Atal ever be persuaded to pray for his soul's repose. Moreover, to this day, the people of Ulthar, Near, and Hathig fear eclipses, and pray by night when pale vapors hide the mountain top and the moon. And above the mists on Hathig Claw, Earth's gods sometimes dance reminiscently, for they know they are safe, and love to come from unknown Cadath in ships of cloud, and play in the olden ways, as they did when Earth was new, and men not given to climbing of inaccessible places.